Hey folks, welcome back to another review with yours truly, Sam Healey. Today we're taking a look at the Endangered Orphans of Condyle Cove. This is a game that is from Certifiable Studios, and basically each player is going to take on the role of an orphan, or they're going to adopt an orphan, and they're trying to make sure that that orphan survives the boogeyman. And the boogeyman is trying to chase down these orphans and basically take them away. And by take them away, we possibly might mean eat them. And basically, yes, that's what it means. He's going to eat them. So that's actually in the rulebook. I'm not just saying that. Anyway, that's generally what we're doing here. Orphans trying to survive the clutches of the boogeyman. And so let's get down to the table. I'll show you how it works, and we'll come back with some final thoughts in just a few moments. If you run out of options in your deck, then you are done. The boogeyman comes and takes you away and eats you. If an act of desperation card, if you have to flip it over, then and it is a boogeyman card, then you are also dead. And basically, it's trying to be the last person standing. So on your turn, you can basically do three things. You can move. You can play cards from your hand of options, and then you can also you must draw. So you never have to move in the first phase. You can stay where you're at if you want to. You can backtrack if you want to do that as well. You can also play cards. But your draw phase is mandatory. You do have to draw 2 cards on your turn during your draw phase from a combination of either the options deck or the Cove deck. Now the Cove deck is a bunch of locations with which you're going to build Condyle Cove. And so when this Cove deck is gone, you're only going to be able to draw cards from your options deck. And then sometimes some of the different places here will help you draw fewer cards during your turn, but we'll get to that in just a few moments. So for example here, the passage says that this and any other passage count as the same space. Well, right now there's only one passage here, so it's actually treated as a location with no special ability. But when another passage comes out, that one and the other passage, if it shows up here, will both be considered the same space. So if you have one guy here and one guy here on the other passage, they're actually considered as being shared. You have the alley down here where it says cards cannot be stolen from your hand. The junkyard over here, it says at the start of your turn, place the bottom card from your discard pile on the bottom of your options deck. So if you have some cards in your options pile here, meaning that you've basically lost some health, you'll be able to take the bottom card from that pile and put it on the bottom card of your options deck, which means you can recoup some health there. The first thing that we can do here is move. So we can move up to 1 or 2 spaces. We're going to go 1, 2 like this. And then we go to our play phase, which is optional. You don't have to play any cards, but I'm feeling kind of spunky, so we're going to go ahead and say safety in covers. And all players not in a town have to discard 3 of their options deck. So once he's done with that, he has to go into his draw phase. He's going to choose not to play this card here. He has to go into his draw phase. So he's going to choose to draw 1 of his option cards, and then he's also going to draw a Cove card. Whenever you draw a Cove card, you simply flip it over, reveal it to everybody, and then place it in one of the open spaces. Generally speaking, one of the open spaces here is one that is connected to another space, but it can't ever be connected to 2 at the same time, like right over here. So right now there's only 1, 2, 3, or 4 open spaces, and this one says cards cannot be stolen from your options deck. Oh, okay, that's cool. That seems like it's a pretty good thing to go right down here. So on Red's turn here, he's going to choose to not move. He likes his special ability in the open field here of only having to draw 1 card and not 2. So he's just going to stay right there, and then he's going to play a card. He's feeling not too happy about having to discard 3 of his option cards, so he's going to go ahead and play a Void. And it says all players in the junkyard must discard 3 cards from their options deck. Well, the only person in the junkyard is green over here, so, you know, I guess that's just rewards, right? So he has to discard 3 cards from his deck, which is pretty bad because he's already got 6 down there. He's probably rethinking that card he played last turn. Well, this goes into the discard pile here. He's going to choose not to play this other card, and since he's in the open field, he only has to draw 1 card, which will be from the, actually, you know what? Let's draw from the Cove deck. And this is another passage, so we're going to put this one right down here like this. Now, this and this are considered the same space, remember that. So purple is going to look at his cards here, and he has the opportunity to really stick it to green, but he's going to be nice and choose not to, and play his lights out card. And lights out simply says that if you are in the town or an alley, you can skip your turn, which sometimes is not a bad thing to do. So he's just going to go ahead and play this, and that way he doesn't have to draw any cards from his options deck or the Cove deck. But this comes back over here, and he's done. Yellow over here is going to move. He's going to go 1, 2 like this, and then he's going to choose not to play any cards from his options deck. Going to his draw phase, he's going to draw 1 card and add it to his hand. Then he's also going to draw a Cove card and add it to an open space. Let's see here. We're going to go ahead and go right here with the highway like that. And that will be the end of his turn. If somebody ends their turn here in Kitty Corner, at the start of their next turn, they're going to have to draw an Act of Desperation card. Now, some of these cards are actually not bad, but some of them, especially in a 4-player game, there could be 2 of them that are Boogeyman cards, like this right here. And of course, it says here, Boogeyman, you lose, because the Boogeyman catches you. You're actually in his house, actually. That's why it's called the Act of Desperation. And he catches you, and you're done. Now, in a 3- or 4-player game, if that happens, the rest of the cards are reshuffled with this put back into it, and everybody else continues. But whenever you play a card, for example, wow, the Boogeymen were the top 2 cards. That's not good shuffling. Anyway, the other cards that are in here, for example, this one says Orphan Escape Plan. It says all players shuffle the top 6 cards from their discard pile back into their options deck. All right, so there is a healing factor to some of these cards, but it's risky because you've got these Boogeyman cards in here. There's also this one called Hidden Passage. Move your pawn to any Cove space. Take the bottom card from every player's discard pile and place them at the bottom of your options deck. So you can take cards from other people. Here it says, meet me under the AC, where it says, move another player to the same space as you and end your turn, or you may add 1 to your move phase this turn. But anyway, that's pretty much it for the Endangered Orphans of Condyle Cove. You're simply trying to evade the Boogeyman while everybody else is trying to be the last person standing. You're trying to be the one that's going to survive while you possibly could be leading other people to the Boogeyman. Now, there are a couple of expansions that come included in the box. There is the Ghost of Benny Harris, which pulls in this idea of shackled hauntings, haunting cards, which are permanent cards, which means that if you get this by having the Ghost of Benny Harris in your spot at the start of your turn, then it gets placed in front of you, and now this is a special rule that is going to be hurting you for the rest of the game. For example, here it says you can now hold 1 less options card, so instead of 4, you can only hold 3. But that's basically what the Ghost of Benny Harris does. It has all of this. It also adds a Cove card that will be included in the deck. And when this comes up, it says that when you land on this spot, immediately remove all permanent cards. So these don't stick around all the time if you go back to the haunting ground, but they will if you don't. And then there's also the Last Winter expansion that comes in the deck, and this is basically a deck of cards. It also adds another Cove card to the Cove deck. It says, skip your play and draw phases to flip over a Lost Winter card. So you would flip over one of these Lost Winter cards, and it says, Desperate or Brave, place your pawn in a cul-de-sac. So, of course, this is the cul-de-sac, so you would have to place yourself here, and then you're going to be drawing an Act of Desperation card. Or it could be something like Bones in the Snow. Other players discard 1 card from their hand and 1 card from their options deck. So that's basically it for the Endangered Orphans of Condyle Cove. A very dark theme, and the box is also certifiably dark. See what I did there? There's some, of course, minutia that's there that I couldn't go over every circumstance that could possibly arise, but you get the idea. You move around, you play some cards. It's a very strong take that element to it because you are trying to hurt the other orphans so that you're the last one standing. My first pro is the component quality of the game. Now, while I wasn't too enamored with the Cove cards because I wasn't feeling the silhouette artwork that was on those cards. I just thought it was a little bit too, I guess you could say too abstract, maybe, for my tastes, but it wasn't that big of a deal. But everything else, I loved the artwork. I really did enjoy the artwork, even though it was dark and some of the ways that the cards were worded and stuff like that, that was really dark as well. I liked the kind of high school detention kind of artwork that's there. Now, I've used that as a bad thing about some games in the past, but this one I liked a lot because it didn't have an outright raw quality to it. It had some refinement there, and that's what I enjoyed about the artwork. I think they did a great job on the miniatures as well. They are different kinds of miniatures, of course. They're a little bit chunky and disproportionate and that type of thing, but I liked how they were able to replicate the artwork with the miniatures. But yeah, component quality was good. My second pro about the game is, quite frankly, that it does play very easily. There's not a whole lot of rules to the rulebook. As a matter of fact, the rulebook is basically just 4 pages, and a lot of it is just jokes that they were trying to make about their rules and about the theme and that type of stuff. So there's a lot of stuff that's built into the rulebook that really doesn't need to be there. This could probably be a 2-page rulebook easily without all the other fluff and how it was worded. And I know they were trying to be funny about it, but I'm not a big fan of having comical rulebooks. I mean, it's cool the first time, but then when it starts to be problematic finding rules that you're trying to flesh out during the game, it becomes more of an annoyance than anything else. But that's that. It plays really simply. There's not a whole lot going on. Now, as far as cons are concerned, it has a tremendous level of take that element to it. And if you don't like take that games, you will not like this one, because as you can see during the play through that I did, green player got smacked pretty hard. It could have got smacked even harder had the other player played that same avoid card on him later on. There are defensive cards in the deck as well, so maybe you'll be able to fend off some of those different attacks, but this is a strong take that element that this game has, and if you don't like that, you're really not going to like this game. And I don't really like take that much. I'm okay with it to an extent. And it also depends on what I'm doing in the rest of the game, how much of a part of the game the take that element is. So it's a con for me on this one because it just felt a little bit too mean. And that was also kind of difficult for me because of the theme. I mean, we're all orphans. We should be on the same team. This should be kind of a cooperative game, staying away from the boogeyman. We shouldn't be trying to throw each other to the wolves, as it were. So it just had a thematic disconnect being a take that game. Another con for me is actually something that I talked about in the pros section about how easy the game plays, and that is the fact that the rulebook is really written in a very loosey-goosey way, and they just, I guess, we're trying too hard to be funny in their rule book. And I'm sure, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. I get it, but when I'm trying to learn a game, I don't want to have to weed through all of the puns and all of the jokes that they're making. I just want to know how to play the game. And they have this weird conversation going back and forth between the writers of the rulebook and the person reading the rulebook. And that just got, tiresome after a while. And again, it's not a very long rulebook, so that's kind of how annoyed I was with it. But it's fine. It's a well-written rulebook, but there's just so much fluff and needless information that's there. It really became boring and tiresome for me. So I've got to mention it as a con here as well. So with all of that being said, I think I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10, and the reason it's not a 5 for me is because of the artwork and the component quality and the theme. The theme is eccentric, and it is not something that's done often. So I think it was interesting that they took this step in this direction, and they kept it lighthearted enough to where you didn't get depressed while playing the game, realizing that you are in essence sending other orphans to their doom by playing the different options cards that you were playing. Now, some of the cards in the Last Winter deck are actually cards that will help other people, so there's a little bit of a counterbalance there, but not much of one. So a 6 out of 10 for me. I did enjoy the game, but I just thought there were too many other things that were distractions in it to truly enjoy the game to its fullest extent. And that's why it's a 6 and not something higher. But the component quality is really good, and so that's why it's not lower than a 6. So that's it from me. 6 out of 10 for Endangered Orphans of Condyle Cove from Certifiable Games. Thanks for joining us. We certainly appreciate it. Take care. We'll see you guys and gals on the flip side.